Greetings, friends, fellow citizens, fellow patriots, and even non-citizens from around the world and around the country who are tuning in to this week's edition of the We the People Convention Weekly News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm the president of the We the People Convention organization. And this podcast is brought to you by the generous donations of the donors to the We the People Convention, who pay for not only this podcast, but our social media, our text messages, our emails, our donations to other conservative groups and individuals around the country who are helping to fight the fight to do what? To protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. That's what this podcast is about. I want to welcome all of you who've decided to join us this week. As many of you are new, as we are reaching new audiences on YouTube and Rumble and MeWe and Gab and Instagram and Getter and Facebook and X and all kinds of places. Welcome to all of you. This podcast is intended to help you understand what happened this week and what it means to you. Right, so we're getting rid of all the propaganda and the nonsense like this, this crazy, obsession with the media of this poor woman in Arizona who has been kidnapped. Yes, we're sorry about that, but get it off my TV. That's not news in my neighborhood. When you find something out, fine, report the news. But this, incessant coverage on Fox and other channels has been disgusting. You're not going to get that here. You're going to get substantive information, news, real news, things that matter, all right? And then we'll not only give that to you, but we'll try to tie that together so that you can see how there's, things that, that are happening that are related to each other and how they're related. And then we will ask you to take action, because it's up to you and I to protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. It's up to you and I to, take action in defense of our nation. And so during this podcast, I will ask you to do certain things. And if you go to our WeThePeopleConvention.org website and go to the podcast page after this is over, you'll see that there's a list of action items at the bottom of the list of all the things that we cover in this podcast. So that's what we're about. We're awful glad that you decided to join us. It's about 8 degrees here in Northeast Ohio, but we think things are finally breaking. We think that we're going to get a bit of a warm up next week, and maybe we've finally bottomed out. I know many of you have been struggling, and for the people who are still without power, oh my goodness, that's been really, really challenging. So we hope that you're at a safe place where you can get heat and electricity, and that all of us are reaching out and helping our neighbors and our friends. So, we're still thinking about, this terrible winter weather and the effects it's had on our fellow citizens. And we're hoping that relief is finally coming in the form of warmer weather. So welcome to this week's podcast. Let's get into it. This podcast needs to start because this was very disturbing to us right away after last week's podcast, where Tom Homan announced a drawdown of 700 federal agents from Minneapolis, from Minnesota. And that was disturbing to us. And Steve Bannon and a lot of other commentators really said, whoa. We said we weren't backing down until they did some things to allow us to back down. So Homan, this is what he said. White House Border Czar Tom Homan said on February 4th that the Trump administration will immediately draw down 700 immigration agents from Minnesota. The reduction was made possible because, as he said, quote, an unprecedented cooperation with local counties, not Minneapolis, it doesn't sound like counties, on honoring immigration and customs enforcement detainers on illegal immigrant prisoners. Homan said at a press conference in Minneapolis. ICE detainers asked jails to notify federal authorities before an illegal immigrant prisoner is to be released so federal agents can detain them before removal. This is smart enforcement, not less, Homan said. Now, he didn't give any statistics. He just said an unprecedented cooperation without saying, yeah, they turned over the 1,300 criminals he had referred to in his press briefing that is on WeThePeopleConvention.org that I asked you to watch last week. He didn't say they turned those people over. So without any information, we were very skeptical. The move comes amid heightened scrutiny of federal immigration operations after the fatal shooting of Renee Good and Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. Homan said the administration is not drawing down on personnel providing security for officers. So this video came, Tom Homan was pressed pretty hard by Laura Ingraham, and I thought, this would be the appropriate video for you to see to put, what happened in context.
Well, people are, I think, understandably skeptical on the right and many on the left, but the MAGA types say, like, don't back down. Mass deportation is what Trump ran on, and now it seems like we hear targeted raids, and so that it gives a lot of his hardcore supporters concern. Tonight, what can you tell us about that?
We're not backing down at all. I said today mass deportations will continue. And I said, no, if illegal aliens are not off the table, look, the normal footprint here is less than 150 agents. We got 2,400 boots on the ground here. And we're going to continue to enforce the immigration law. I'm out there tonight. We're forcing the immigration law. But we said from day one, January 20th, from day one, President Trump and I and other people in the administration said, we're going to prioritize the public safety threats, because that makes the most sense, because they pose the most danger. But we've arrested a lot of illegal aliens. Look at the numbers, over 700,000 deportations, which is a record for this agency. And 70% of those being criminals. I think that's a better stat than saying we arrested 700,000, deported them, and 70% were non-criminals. No, makes perfect sense for the safety and security of this country, because President Trump promised to make this country safe again. Mass deportations are here, they're coming, we're already breaking records, and we're not going to stop. If you're in the country illegally, we're looking for you, we're going to arrest you, and we're going to deport you. Nothing's changed.
So I take Tom Homan at his word, and again, that's a pretty big footprint. So they drew down 700, but there's like 2,400 still there, and there is evidence that things have happened. They have, I heard a number of like 4,000 more illegals have been taken out of Minnesota. I was very encouraged by this story that said federal prosecutors have charged more than 150 anti-ICE protesters in Minnesota, ranging with crimes ranging from obstruction of federal agents to FACE Act violations, offenses that carry penalties from fines to years in prison, as the Justice Department warns that similar conduct will be prosecuted aggressively nationwide. The response in the state offers a roadmap of sorts of how the Justice Department could move to quash similar protests nationwide and respond to unrest during Trump's second term as president. So, what you saw, there is video if you go to our X account, Tom Z, WTPC, Tom Z, WTPC at X.com. You'll see videos of not only ICE doing this, but Minneapolis police and Minnesota state policemen literally tackling protesters and arresting them. So there has been a crackdown there, and I think that's good. So, we gotta keep seeing what's happening, because you and I know, we've talked about this. This is a civil war, a hot civil war. People are dying. A guy was just shot and killed, I think it was in Portland this week, who had a gun and tried to attack, ICE agents, and he was shot and killed. Now, why that's not a big deal, that's interesting to me. But again, they pick their propaganda targets. We know this war has to be won. We cannot retreat. We must stand up to them. And the efforts of the Trump administration certainly can't be called retreat. So there was some real good news that I need to share with you. New federal judge tosses Minnesota lawsuit to stop immigration enforcement. So, as you know, the left has been using lawfare since Trump's first term to just do everything they can to stop him from doing what you and I voted for. But this is a big decision. The outcome should come as no surprise to anyone familiar with the Constitution and the 10th Amendment, on which Minnesota AG Keith Ellison relied upon for his lawsuit. What may come as a surprise is that not even the normally sympathetic federal judge hearing the case would allow it. Judge Catherine Menendez, a Biden-appointed jurist who recently stayed in ICE operations on GOP, sharply overturned by the Eighth Circuit, threw in the towel early this time. So she had to stay on another ICE operation before it was overturned. This time, she ruled that Minnesota could not make its case for judicial intervention to stop Operation Metro Surge, the Homeland Security effort to find violent illegal aliens, criminals released by state and local authorities in the Twin Cities. Decision from the U.S. District Judge Catherine Menendez comes just 37 days after the shooting of Petty and the filing by Ellison to stop this. So now the courts have said what we're doing in Minneapolis is totally legitimate and can be done. So then Trump goes and signs an executive order expanding DH access to critical records, criminal records. And I'm thinking, wow, that's interesting. Like, didn't they have it before? And the answer is no. They put all these walls in the government to kind of make it harder to enforce the law. And Trump's removing those. President Donald Trump signed an executive order Friday, just yesterday, targeting criminal illegal aliens in the United States, instructing federal agencies to improve sharing of records. The order requires the Department of Justice to give the Department of Homeland Security full access to federal crime history information to further improve immigration screening, vetting, and border enforcement. In its latest action in accordance with Trump's 2020 presidential campaign vow to launch the largest deportation effort in American history. The executive order is called Protecting the National Security and Welfare of the United States. So basically what it means is that as DHS is looking at criminals, at illegal aliens who are in the country, they can now see DOJ records about if they have a criminal record or not. Duh, what a great idea. Why did Trump have to do that? I don't know, but he did it, and that's what matters. And then this, was really big news. Okay, I want to highlight this because there'll be a lot of stuff in this podcast, and yes, some things are more important than others. This is big. Big win for Trump as appeals court blocks liberal judges from releasing migrants. They're not migrants, they're illegal immigrants. President Donald Trump's lawyer scored big on Friday, just yesterday, when a Texas-based appeals court allowed officials to hold arrested migrants in detention so their migration cases can be decided quickly. Enormous immigration win for President Trump, said Eric Wesson, the Solicitor General in Iowa's Attorney General's office. He had the Fifth Circuit, the first federal court to address President Trump's expedited removal efforts, sides with the administration. Illegal aliens may be detained and removed. Now, what does this mean? A guy on X, a guy named Will Chamberlain, Will Chamberlain on X, I shared this, said this decision is massively important, one of the most important of the year. It means that if you are an illegal alien who never presented themselves at a port of entry and ICE finds you, you can and must be detained without bail. Now, this is important. The knock-on effects from this will be enormous. Prior to this, if you were caught as an illegal alien and put in removal proceedings, you were entitled to bail while your lawyers string things along. You could stay out of jail for months, even years, and keep doing what you were doing in our country, but no more. Now, if you crossed illegally and ICE finds you, you're done. You're not walking American streets freely again unless you prevail in your removal proceedings, which is very unlikely. You won't be able to go to your apartment and grab your things. You are simply done. You can either accept deportation or sit in immigration detention while your lawyer wastes their time on futile filings and then get deported when you lose. This will lead to a lot more illegal aliens simply giving up on their frivolous court fights and accepting deportation. This will also lead to many more illegal aliens self-deporting. Would you rather pack up your things and settle your fares and get a free flight and $2,500 to leave? Or would you rather try and hide from ICE, knowing that the moment they find you, you will never breathe fresh, free air in America again, and all your possessions you won't be able to take with you? Big, big decision, okay? And you can click on the link on our podcast page to read the rest of this article yourself. But that's a real big deal. Now, don't get me wrong, the left isn't stopping their lawfare, and here's an example of that. Judge blocks DHS from using taxpayer data for immigration enforcement. So what was going on here is, smartly, DHS was talking to the IRS to try to help find illegals. A federal judge on February 5th temporarily blocked the Department of Homeland Security from using taxpayer information supplied by the IRS for immigration enforcement purposes. U.S. District Judge Indira Tawani. Why do none of these frickin' leftist judges have American names? From Massachusetts, barred DHS and one of its agencies, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, from following interagency agreements in which the IRS shared taxpayer information, such as addresses, with DHS and ICE so they could find illegals. The preliminary injunction will remain in effect as the litigation plays out in the courts. My guess, this will just be overturned again. It's just simply lawfare. The good news, what you need to get, what we need to understand, is we're winning in the courts. All the stuff, Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, Tom Homan, they're all acting illegal. He's a fascist. This is Gestapo. They're violating the Constitution. They're just completely don't care about the law. Every single time, they have just been going along and fighting in the courts and winning despite the leftist direction of the courts. And we're going to have a whole bunch more in this podcast about this. So what this all ended up with was the Democrats saying, we're not going to pass the budget. We're going to do a government shutdown, which they did last week before our podcast, okay, on Friday night. The Senate voted to pass the 5 appropriation bills and a CR, a continuing resolution, for 2 weeks for funding for DHS. Okay, so not all 6, just that. And then President Trump went to work on Monday because we had some Republicans in the House who weren't going to pass it. He said, no, we can't have a big shutdown. They passed it. President Trump signed it. And now they're arguing about, funding of DHS. Okay, so, Trump signed the bill on Monday to end the partial government shutdown. We did have some people laid off and all that stuff, but the net effect was pretty much nothing. President Donald Trump signed a bill on February 3rd to end the 4-day partial government shutdown. This comes just hours after the House passed the package 217 to 214. So you can see, very narrow. And a few Democrats voted with us, a few Republicans didn't. 21 Republicans voted against the Senate passed package, while 21 Democrats voted for it. So 21 and 21, all right? The legislation fully funds 5 sectors of federal government through the end of the fiscal year, while extending funding for the Department of Homeland Security until February 13. Despite its passage, the bill faced significant Democratic opposition, including from party leadership. Before signing the bill from the Oval Office, Trump called it a fiscally responsible package that actually cuts wasteful spending while supporting critical programs for the safety, security, and prosperity of American people. I don't think that's true. This is the same budget that Joe Biden passed for 4 years. This is Nancy Pelosi's budget, okay? What cuts? There's no cuts, all right? So President Trump, come on. You may be talking to them, but, we're listening too. That's bogus, okay? So here's what you need to know about this. This threat to shut down the government if we don't completely hamstring ICE to keep them from deporting the illegals that elect the Democrats and steal our money and funnel it to the Democrats, okay, is a non-starter. Not going to happen, okay? The idea that, you're going to tell ICE they can't wear masks when you are organized effort to dox them, to say that, they can't, they have to get a judicial warrant for all 20 million illegals, and it's really 50 million illegals in this country, when you've never needed a warrant before for deportation. It's real simple. That's Howard Plevin. Remember you guys who watch Glenn Beck and stuff? Is it Howard or Coward Plevin? I forget. Okay, where you overflow the system. So what's their tactic here? Real simple. Make the stupid Republicans pass something that can't be done. Get a judicial warrant to deport every single illegal immigrant. Oh yeah, how many decades would that take? Shut up, okay? Guess what? In the big, beautiful bill, DHS, Homeland Security, got like $75 billion. This fiscal bill is just a portion of that. This ain't going to stop anything. And you know what? We're going to use this to just embarrass the Democrats, because it's just like when they shut it down last time. Oh, we're going to shut it down because you're stopping people from getting health care because you won't continue to fund the bogus Obamacare theft of our money. And what happened? Everybody started looking at that, and it was like, they're stealing billions of dollars. Yeah, the Democrats lost that one. They're going to lose this one. Nobody supports this, okay? They don't want to defund ICE. And I showed you last week, all the polls show it is overwhelming. We want not just the criminal illegals deported, we want all of them deported. It's a loser for the Democrats. Trump outsmarted them. To Thune and Johnson's credit, they managed to get it through, okay? And so don't worry about it. It's just noise. DHS ain't stopping. We're going to be full throttle. Okay? So the next issue, and a big issue, and I'll say it now, and then I'll say it again, and I'll say it again. Call your senators and demand that Thune pass the SAVE Act. This is the act that says, you can't register to vote unless you are a U.S. citizen, and you have to provide proof of that. Well, the left is losing their mind. Why? Because they depend on illegals voting for them to win. Walz, Fry, the Minneapolis mayor, Ellison in Minnesota, they are not elected without illegal Somali and other votes and ballot harvesting and money stolen from us to their campaigns. In Maine, the governor of Maine, many of their state reps and stuff take Somali money, have the Somalis voting, have the Somalis ballot harvesting for them. That's why they're fighting so hard. I'm about to prove to you they're going to lose big time. But we lose, America loses, if you and I don't force the Senate and the House to pass the SAVE Act and get it on Trump's desk. So I'll start with Greg Gutfeld. If you watch Gutfeld, he's pretty funny, and he had a take on this. I'm just going to show you a short piece of this.
All right, so you got to hand it to the Democrats. On one hand, they think a child can handle the decision to lop off their genitals, but then on the other, they think black people can't get a photo ID. Right, Chuck?
The SAVE Act is an abomination. It's Jim Crow 2.0 across the country. We are going to do everything we can to stop it.
Thanks for weighing in, Chuck. Now go back to your burrow where you smash mice with your giant forehead. So Dems are calling the SAVE Act Jim Crow 2.0, but if that were the case, they'd support it again. But to them, showing an ID to vote is no different than forcing people to drink from separate water fountains. Meanwhile, you need an ID to buy Sudafed, rent a U-Haul, and date Bill Belichick.
So there's a little bit of humor, but it's really the truth. It's sad. Democrats hate the SAVE Act because they want illegals to vote. It's just that simple. The only explanation there could be for opposing requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote is a desire to have non-citizens voting. Democrat recent hysteria over the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, SAVE Act, was unsurprisingly manifested in claims that it's Jim Crow 2.0. Remember, when you can't win the argument, right? When you can't win the argument, you just attack people. You're an Islamophobe. You're a racist. You're a bigot. You're a transphobe. No, let's have the argument. They don't want to have the argument. That's all they got is intimidation. Guess what? It doesn't work anymore. You can't call us, you blew it. You called us racist for so long, it doesn't matter anymore. You're the racist. We know that, right? But anyway, it says it's a threat to democracy itself. But cut through the historics, and you'll find that Democrats oppose the SAVE Act is based on something far simpler. They hate anything that interferes with their long-running effort to control elections and consolidate power through illegals voting. And I'll give you a really absurd example of that pretty soon. The SAVE Act would amend the 1993 National Voter Registration Act to require documented proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections. Okay? It's not a literacy test. It's not a poll test. It just says, the Constitution says only citizens can vote in federal elections, and you shouldn't be able to register to vote unless you prove that you are a citizen. And you should have to bring a photo ID. And it's not racist at all. So we've had pressure. You've been calling Thune and your senators and your congressmen, and it's working. Let's see what they have to say.
That is, should non-citizens be voting in American elections? The answer is no. And the Democrats have taken a hard position that it's okay. Now, the law already prevents that, but if that's true, then why wouldn't we want to put into law something that would require, when you go to vote, that you prove you're a United States citizen? And that's all the SAVE Act does. And so, you know, they can cry and lament this actually being voted on, but I'd be hard-pressed to have to defend a position that doesn't believe that you have to be an American citizen to vote in an American election.
I'll finish off with the words of Speaker Mike Johnson defending the SAVE Act. This is from yesterday. Leader Thune, listen.
The SAVE Act just simply says you have to have verification of citizenship to register to vote. That's about a 90-10 issue on many of the polls in this country. And we're going to enhance it by what the president calls the Save America Act. And so it would be proof of citizenship to register to vote and voter ID, which is also about an 80 or 90% issue on the polling nationwide.
Nothing going on Capitol Hill these days. Leader Thune, I'll give you a final thought on all of it.
Well, I honestly, you know, this right now, their political base is demanding they fight with anything that President Trump wants. It is Trump derangement syndrome. It is on steroids around here these days, and even logical, commonsensical things like ensuring that if you're going to vote in an American election, you ought to be an American citizen, they're going to just instinctively oppose.
So there you have it, right? And I'm going to show you the polling here just in a second because it's just devastating to the Democrats, particularly on the racial issue, okay? But I just want to give you an egregious example, all right? This was from the Gateway Pundit, but I'm just trying to make the point so obvious because why? They don't want to pass the SAVE Act, but also, remember, we've talked ad nauseum week after week about how all the blue states won't turn over their voter rolls to have the federal government verify through Social Security and HHS databases of naturalized American citizens if they're legal voters. Why won't they do that? Because they keep saying, oh, you know, like this example I'm going to give you, these are one-offs and, you know, they don't affect the election. Folks, it's millions. It's millions of people. Illegals are voting in our elections, and every one of them steals your vote, okay? And that's, the proof is there. So here's a story that just blow your mind. Pakistanis who have never been to the U.S. are voting in California elections from inside Pakistan. Can't make this up. San Joaquin County Sheriff Captain says voting records show people outside the country in Pakistan are allowed to vote in California elections. The Sheriff's Captain revealed this during a press conference in September of 2025. He said, the way the voting system is structured, we see quite a few flaws. Oh, really? Flaws? It's called cheating. You're able to register and cast a vote if you don't live in the country, as evidenced by this person's brother in Pakistan. I think we have some evidence that 2 or 3 other people out of the country that have voted. Is that correct? Yeah. Approximately 2 or 3 other people in the country, as well as people residing outside of the district. The online voter registration system, okay, it seems to be an honor system. An honor system. Oh, really? Anybody can put information in there to register to vote. All you have to do is click a box and say that you're not lying. And then you'll get an email from the Secretary of State or something in the mail that says, thank you for registering to vote. And there you are. And once you're on the voter rolls, anytime an election comes around, guess what? You get mailed the ballot. Then you get mailed something to vote. So we found that a little bit problematic. A little bit problematic? This is what's going on in California. That's how they stole California. That's how they can win all these things. They're cheating by the millions. And the Babylon Bee put this up, and I kind of texted around to a few people. You may want to share this, but you got to go to the Babylon Bee. It's a satire site on the web and on social media. They put out a picture of Schumer and Jeffrey saying, Democrats push for death certificates to be accepted as voter ID. You got to have a piece of paper, right? They want to use death certificates because, again, not only are illegals voting, how many dead people are voting in elections around the country? This is a fundamental issue. You and I cannot protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity without ending this. The Democrat Communist Marxist Party has nowhere near the number of supporters that the votes show. And we found it. We saw that right in 2024 when Joe Biden got 81 million votes in 2020, but Kamala Harris got like 11 million less. Those were all fraudulent votes, people. Okay, and so let's go to the polls to see how bad they're going to lose, because they're going to lose really bad on this issue. This is devastating, and this video will be linked on our podcast page at wethepeopleconvention.org so you can share it.
The American people are with Nicki Minaj, because what are we talking about here? So take a look here. Favor voter ID to vote. Look, I got all this polling on the screen going back since 2018. You'll notice on all of it, it's all north of 75%, 76%, 76%, 76%, 81%, and then 83% in the last year of Americans agree with Nicki Minaj. They favor photo ID to be able to vote.
What about by party? What's the party breakdown?
Yeah, normally you might expect, hey, there'd be a big divide by party with Republicans really for it and Democrats really against it. But not really here. I mean, just take a look here. Favor photo ID to vote. You got 95% of Republicans, pretty much all of them, but even 71% of Democrats favor photo ID to vote. So again, Nicki Minaj posting that on X, and what you see is that the American people, actually, it's not really all that controversial. The American people are with Nicki Minaj, whether they are Republican or even if they are Democrats. We're talking about 7 in 10 Democrats agreeing with Nicki Minaj that you, in fact, should show a voter photo ID to vote.
What's the racial breakdown?
Okay, what's the racial breakdown on this, right? Because I think a lot of people make the argument that people of color, non-white Americans, have a harder time procuring a photo ID to vote. But even here, take a look here. Favor photo ID to vote. 85% of white people favor it. 82% of Latino. 76% of black Americans favor it. So the bottom line is this. Voter ID is not controversial in this country. A photo ID to vote is not controversial in this country. It is not controversial by party, and it is not controversial by race. The vast majority of Americans agree with Nicki Minaj that, in fact, you should have a photo ID to be able to vote.
So we have been gaslit for decades, and Republicans, mealy-mouthed, weak Republicans, have been intimidated by the Jim Crow 2.0 for decades. We've been talking about this forever. How come it hasn't been done? This isn't changed. And you want to talk about Jim Crow 2.0 and racism? First of all, let's remember the Democratic Party was Jim Crow 2.0. Let's remember the Democrats were for slavery. Let's remember that Republicans are the ones who helped black Americans become equal citizens, not Democrats. But now they want to tell you, oh, they're protecting you blacks, right? No, they're not. They're keeping you on the government plantation. What is more racist than suggesting, not even suggest, basically saying that black people are too stupid and incompetent to get a photo ID? You've got to be kidding me. Nothing could be more racist than that. You can't buy alcohol. You think blacks don't buy alcohol? You can't rent a car. You can't get an apartment. Can blacks not get an apartment? How dare you? How dare you? This has to end. You have to call your senator and your House member and keep calling them every day until they pass this. It's outrageous. You're being gaslit. And don't give me this, oh, my one call doesn't matter. No, that doesn't cut it, kids. Every call matters. And call the damn Dems too. Let them know you know they're racist. Say what I just said. Leave a message and say, Jim Crow 2.0, you're the people who say blacks can't get a photo ID. You're the racist. Tell the Democrats that. California, you call all those Democrats in the House and in the Senate. Okay? It matters. You matter. We matter. Collectively, we matter. You fight. This is the fight. We don't do this? What the heck do you think is going to happen in the November election? What do you think is going to happen? Voter fraud like you can't believe. So don't sit on the sidelines and go, oh, good job, the Trump people are, shut up. You and I, we the people. This is our nation. This is our fight. I'm telling you, I'm showing you, I'm bringing it to you, and I'm showing you how to fight the fight. Fight it. Win it. Do not accept anything less. This is not anything we can back down on. Just like ICE deporting people, we cannot back down on this. And any Republican, and they're going to bring this to a vote, and any Republican that doesn't vote for this, they got to lose their primary. The primaries are coming up. Total intolerance for this. You vote for this. This is a vote for the Constitution. It's not racist. It's not discriminatory. We're not trying to get an advantage. We're trying to make it fair. Oh, make it fair. Oh, yeah. Jim Crow 2.0. Yeah. Play that video, from our webpage and let people see what the real stats are. Okay. Now, this next story is another really big thing, but so much is going on, you may not have gotten it. Okay? This is a tipping point. This is really important on the trans issue. I put this story out to you, and if you don't get our emails or text messages, go to wethepeopleconvention.org and sign up. Doctors guilty in transgender surgery lawsuit. This is really important, all right? A jury awarded $2 million in damages to a 22-year-old woman who underwent breast removal surgery as a teenager. A jury on January 30th found a psychologist and a surgeon liable for malpractice after they supported and performed breast removal surgery on a 16-year-old girl who at the time identified as transgender. Fox Varian, now 22 and no longer identifying as transgender, was awarded $2 million in damages, with $1.6 million for the past and future pain and suffering, and another for future medical expenses. The jury found that in many respects, the surgeon and psychologist had skipped important steps when evaluating whether she should go forward with the surgery and had not adequately communicated with each other. These missteps were a departure from the standards of care that that should have been done in that circumstance. A jury of 80 Americans sent a clear message. Justice will be served for vulnerable individuals who are misled into gender transition procedures without appropriate safeguards, said Josh Payne of the firm Campbell Miller Payne, who was not involved in the case but was in court observing Friday's proceedings. His firm was founded 3 years ago to represent plaintiffs in cases similar to this. So the 6-member jury was not asked whether gender-related procedures, surgical procedures, are appropriate for minors. The question was whether the therapist and doctor took the appropriate steps before the surgery was performed, okay? So understand that part of it. But President Trump has already acted, we're saying, it's not appropriate for anyone under age 16, all right? But the mother testified that she was given the whole trope of, if you don't agree to do this, you can either have a dead son or a dead daughter or a live son. They did that psychological mumbo jumbo on, I don't know, at least tens of thousands of parents. These people, I wrote on X, I hope that these people all suffer for the rest of their lives like the people that they mutilated, the children that they mutilated are going to suffer for the rest of their lives. But here's the deal, kids. This is the beginning of the end. And you want the proof? We always bring the receipts on our podcast. AMA now says evidence is insufficient for trans surgeries. Oh, really? The AMA agrees the evidence is insufficient support surgical butchery of children. That's funny, because I had a long conversation with the president of the AMA, Dr. Makala Mala, a few months ago about this very issue. He stood behind it 100%. I wonder what changed. Lawsuits? This is from Ethan Hyam, a doctor who posted on X, that he personally confronted the AMA person, and they were like, oh, yeah, we think this is great, until the lawsuits. And what happened also this week? Oh, funny. Major medical group announces opposition to pediatric transgender surgeries. Available evidence requires a precautionary approach, says the American Society of Plastic Surgeons. Oh, really? A group representing plastic surgeons, primarily in America and Canada, on February 3rd said it opposes carrying out breast removal and other gender transition surgeries on minors. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons told members in a 9-page statement outlining its position that there is insufficient evidence supporting a favorable risk-benefit calculus for performing the surgeries on children. ASPS recommends that surgeons delay gender-related breast, chest, genital, and facial surgery until the patient is at least 19 years old. The group, which represents more than 1,000 doctors around the world, many of them based in the United States and Canada, stated, okay? The ASPS in 2019 said states should not restrict surgeries for children experiencing gender dysphoria or the belief that they are of different gender from their birth sex. Why? The lawsuits. Sue them all. The hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, everyone. Sue them all. This is going to be a stain on our country for the rest of history. These people are despicable, woke, mentally ill people who took advantage of our children and mutilated them. They call Trump a Nazi? Yeah. Joseph Mengele, the most Nazi, would approve of what these heinous people did to our children in the last 10 years. Time for them to pay. Sue every one of them as much as you possibly can. So this was a good story as well about the education department is basically saying we've got to come up with guidance on prayer and religious speech in schools, because we've had these things of, a football coach that wants to pray after the game and they fire him and all this stuff. So I was pleased to see this. Now, some of you may think it didn't go far enough, but again, it's bringing some sort of stability, because the whole, what is the left about? Why is all, for those of you who are new, you don't understand. Go on our webpage at WeThePeopleConvention.org, search on trans, search on China. You'll see articles about a Chinese billionaire funded the whole trans movement in the United States. Funded it. Why? To destroy your family, to destroy your community, your schools, your churches, to create chaos. That's what the left is. That's what ICE is fighting in Minneapolis. They're trying to create chaos to overthrow our nation. That's what the Green New Scam was about, okay? So you need certainty, and that's what Trump is doing, whether it's with energy or education or foreign policy. So this is important. The U.S. Department of Education has issued updated guidelines clarifying the rights of students and teachers in public schools to pray and engage in other religious expression. And they get into detail. Released on February 5th, the guidance reaffirms existing constitutional protections for students and teachers, saying that they can pray at school as an expression of individual faith so long as they are not speaking or acting on behalf of the school, right? So the coach can say, I want to pray after the game. He's not saying the school is praying. He's saying it. The document also reminds public school administrators they must treat religious speech the same as secular speech. That includes situations such as students expressing religious views in class assignments. If public school teachers call the student religious-based view that marriage between a man and a woman is despicable and lowered the student's grade in response, that teacher would demonstrate religious hostility and violates the student's constitutional rights. That principle applies to religious student organizations, the department said If the school provides support, recognition, or access to secular clubs, it must extend the same support to religious clubs on a non-discriminatory basis. Okay? So that article in our podcast page, you can share that. You should read the rest of it. Know your rights so that your children and you can use those rights in the school environment, whether it's college or pre-K, all right, pre-K-12. So that was a good deal. This was a good move. President Trump launched a $12 billion project, Project Vault, where they were going to stockpile critical minerals. Okay? President Trump announced on February 2nd a new strategic private sector critical mineral stockpile. Project Vault is being seeded with $1.6 billion in private capital and $10 billion loan from the U.S. Import-Export Bank, and is meant to insulate the U.S. industries from market disruptions such as the seismic critical mineral rules Beijing implemented last year. The Pentagon already has a critical mineral stockpile kept in 6 locations across the country to be used in an event of a national emergency. However, this is for private industry to be able to stockpile minerals so they can continue to manufacture things that are used in washing machines and in TVs and things like that are like magnets and things of that nature. So again, being proactive, making America able to stand on its own 2 feet and not be dependent on our enemies. Not just on anybody else, but on people who want to destroy us. And that's what Biden and Obama and all of them were doing. And Clinton's particularly, right? They were trying to make us dependent on our enemies. That's ending right now. This was a good story because I think it gets to the heart of what many of you are upset. Trump administration axes $1.5 billion in blue state grants over reported waste and mismanagement concerns. So what is this about? Trump administration budget office told Fox Business Wednesday it's canceling $1.5 billion in blue state grants, citing concerns about how funds are being managed in California, Colorado, Illinois, and Minnesota. The Office of Budget Management said it will target projects of the Department of Transportation, the Center for Disease Control, cutting $9.543 million and $6.602 million respectively. The OMB spokesman told the New York Post that the states were being targeted due to waste and mismanagement of taxpayer funds. Okay, so now they're going to say this is politics. Trump is trying to go after the blue states. These are the sanctuary states. But we know the sanctuary states are about what? Why are they sanctuary? First of all, there's no such thing as a sanctuary city or state. The federal government is in charge of immigration, not states. We've talked about that. So there's only one reason to be a sanctuary city or state. That's because you want to house illegal immigrants to do what? Well, we've talked about the voting stuff, but what the big thing we're learning about the Somalis and other groups all over the country is that they're using government programs to steal our tax dollars, right? So $1.5 billion that they're holding, that's peanuts. Here's a story, okay, about California. New fraud uncovered in California, $8.6 billion in COVID era relief. SBA suspends more than 111 borrowers in the state. Earlier this week, the White House announced plans for a new anti-fraud task force targeting welfare abuse in California and other states, and assigned Vice President J.D. Vance, Andrew Ferguson of the Federal Trade Commission, and Attorney General Paul Bondi to do this. California Attorney General Rob Bonanno fell all over himself Thursday, claiming that California Department of Justice was working to tackle the fraud in their state. Right? Oh yeah, you really have been. Friday morning, the Small Business Administration upstaged AG Bonda and announced it has uncovered $8.6 billion in suspected fraud tied to COVID-era relief lending in California, and has suspended more than 111,000 borrowers in the states. SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler said the borrowers are suspected of improper activity involving federal pandemic programs, including Paycheck Protection and economic injury and disaster loans. California, man. Gavin Newsom, right? Yeah. Your presidential run's going to end because people are going to see now that California is based on 2 things: unbelievable fraud and illegal voting, illegal immigrant voting. Okay? That's what's going to happen. It's going to be wonderful, wonderful to see. Okay? Then Trump did something we talked about last year when he first came in. This is a Project 2025 thing. He was going to reschedule employees, and it never happened. And then all of a sudden, shazam, Schedule F is nuke against deep state, and Trump's finger is on the button. While everyone is glued to AI stocks and crypto charts, the real power move this week just quietly unfolded in Washington. The Office of Personnel Management, OMB, Russ Vought, finalized the rules that will allow President Trump to reclassify up to 50,000 federal employees as at-will workers. Do you know what that means? That means if the Supreme Court upholds this move, and they'll obviously go to the Supreme Court, Trump can fire tens of thousands of entrenched bureaucrats from the deep state who shape federal policy. This is a direct nuclear strike right at the heart of the permanent deep state and administrative state. So watch that unfold, okay? That's going to be pretty interesting. And then last week, we talked about what? We talked about Trump accounts and how you didn't know how important it was. And we tried to focus you on that. And I asked you to go and share the Trump account information, and it flips on its head what we've been doing for decades, where we make people poor and then we demand federal programs to subsidize them. And the Trump accounts are to make people wealthy so they don't ever need to be subsidized. If you didn't watch, go to WeThePeopleConvention.org and look at the Trump accounts. This week, what does he do? Trump announces details of TrumpRx, prescription discounts for Americans. He's been talking about it. He's been negotiating it. He did the press conference that we covered with these pharmaceutical companies. It was amazing. It's on our website at WeThePeopleConvention.org if you want to see that from a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. This is delivering, man. Big time. TrumpRx.gov, that's the website, TrumpRx.gov, a new website facilitating the sale of discounted prescription medications directly to consumers, is expected to go live in 2026. President Trump announced the platform on September 30th while introducing a prescription drug deal with Pfizer, which will be participants in the site. Trump did not mention the name TrumpRx, but Pfizer used the name in its statement that same day. All right? So what is TrumpRx about? Well, they're cutting out the pharmacy benefits manager. This is this mediary group that Trump has singled out as saying that they have raised the prices of drugs by being in between the pharmaceutical companies and your drug company, your pharmacy, okay? And so TrumpRx will allow patients to find a drug and purchase it from the manufacturer directly at a discount price. This is amazing. Pfizer said it will offer a large majority of its medications at discounts averaging 50% through the website. Amgen announced on October 6th that it will offer Repatha, a drug that I'm on and has helped me greatly with my heart condition. It lowers LDL dramatically, an injectable treatment for high cholesterol at a 60% discount through the platform, reducing the cost to $239 per month. I had to fight like heck to be able to get the drug at all. And now I could buy it directly through this website. There's more about this. It's amazing. Prior authorization not required. Delays in coverage or outright denials of payments for medication by insurance companies have been consistent complaints among patients and physicians for years. These are often triggered by prior authorization, a process that insurance companies use to avoid unnecessary charges. The drug purchase on TrumpRx website, prior authorization won't be a factor because patients will purchase directly from drug makers. Uninsured patients expected to benefit directly because you could just literally go on this website and shop. So here's a picture of the website, okay? Find the world's lowest prices on prescription drugs at TrumpRx.gov. Go look at this website. It's a really cool website, and it lists many of the discounts. This is going to help you. It's going to help all of us. It's going to help lower the cost of health care. And so the war continues. RFK Jr. is fighting to change it. We've got Congress has got to stop funding the frickin' insurance companies. They've got to help people like us with health care. The way to do that is so that we can buy our own health care and shop for it, whether it's insurance or whether it's medications. This whole thing is a scam, as we found out when they shut down the government last time, when they said, oh, keep paying those Obamacare subsidies, and we found out that the insurance companies, they were stealing the money. Okay, now, that's not true. They followed the law. The law was the stealing. And when Congress passed it, when the Democrats passed it and Republicans let them, they stole us blind. And the insurance companies made all kinds of money. Yeah, their stocks are all down because the goose is coming home to roost, okay? And we now know this has got to end. TrumpRx.gov. Got to go see it. Going to save you real money. So I'll wrap up the first half of the podcast by this. Trump holds cabinet meeting on January 29th. Totally got lost. Totally got no coverage. It's on our website at wethepeopleconvention.org in the video section. This one was the shortest one they've had. Trump, it was only like 27 minutes. They didn't go around the table to everyone to talk. Here's the point. Never in the history of man have common citizens like you and I had received the access we get through these meetings to the people spending our trillions of dollars of tax money and affecting our lives. You got to take 27 minutes to find out what's going on. Because you know what's going on? Amazing things. And all the people who tell me, and again, I have big problems with some of the stuff that Trump does. Okay, big problems. But overall, what he and his cabinet members, well, I don't care whether it's Besnet, Ludnick, Zeldin, any of them, they are working for us and doing things for us that no one has ever done for you and I. And the Trump accounts are an example. TrumpRx is another example. They never cared that you couldn't afford your medicine unless they could get money from a lobbyist and from a pharmaceutical company to say, oh, yeah, we care. We're going to give money to this insurance company to give you that medicine. And they're taking the money from one pocket out of the other, right? You can't afford it, but I'm going to take your tax dollars. See the shell game? That's ending. That's what's happening here. These people aren't doing shell games. These are the most brilliant people. All of them are unbelievably successful in their own right. And they're bringing their knowledge and experience to help all of us. And if you don't believe that, go to our video section at wethepeopleconvention.org and search on Ludnick, the guy who's working with Trump. He did a video that I posted, had to be last June or something, where he explains all the amazing things that they're going to do for you and I, and they're doing them. Awesome video. Watch that video and watch Trump's, staff meeting, his cabinet meeting. It was unbelievably great. Okay, we're going to take a break now and then come back for the second half of the show. We hope that you've enjoyed what we've talked about. This in the first half of the show. Are you going to call your senator? Are you going to call your congressman every day this week and demand that they pass the SAVE Act? Yeah, I expect you will, because you're a patriot. You love this country, and you watch this podcast to protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And that is how you do it. Call your senator and House members every day today, this week, and until they pass the SAVE Act. You've been listening to the We the People Convention weekly news and opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and we'll be back after these messages. The We the People Convention news and opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button, and if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. if you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. What, something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. If you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. And it's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share, this, whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like, and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People Convention site, and that you get more people to look at it, because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others. Thanks a lot. All right, and we're back, and we're glad you're with us. We hope you enjoyed the first half of the podcast. We hope that you will use the chapters player on our website at wethepeopleconvention.org. If you go to that website, click on the podcast page, and then by Sunday, it takes a while for this company to process our video. You'll have the regular player, and then below it is a player that lists every story that we've done, and you can just go down and go, oh, I want to watch that, and it'll take you right to the video where that is, and give you a link that you can share that with somebody else. Okay, so you can use that. Then we've got all the stories listed that are linked, so you can then read the rest of the story yourself. Because I don't go into the whole article, so there's lots more in many of these articles. And you can share the videos, okay, like the one by Greg Gutfeld, or the one by the CNN one with the polling on voter ID, right? And so those are all available to you there. All right. And again, we thank you if you can donate to the We the People Convention. For 16 years, we have people who have been donating since the first time. And we thank them. And we thank you new donors, because 2026, we've got a lot of fights to fight. And the more we can get as far as revenue, the more income we have, the more ways we'll be able to use that, okay, to fight and win. It's all about turnout. Your focus has to be on getting turnout for the November election. And again, I'll say this, and I'll keep saying this from now through November. We don't have we're gonna have the SAVE Act, and if people don't vote for that in their primary, you should throw them out. But once the primaries are over, it doesn't matter all the things that they've done wrong or how much of a rhino they are or whatever. You and I, have no choice but to vote for every Republican on the ballot in our state because we need to protect President Trump. If we lose the House or the Senate, the whole thing blows up. They'll grind it to a halt. You and I cannot allow that. Now, there's lots of things that are going to help us with this, right? Passing the SAVE Act would help. Supreme Court's going to rule about the redistricting gerrymandered on racial levels. That's going to help. Getting Harmeet Dillon suing to get the voter rolls and getting illegals off. All of that matters. But mostly what matters, turnout. Turnout. And again, we can debate what we don't like, and yeah, these people are rhinos and all that stuff. And they are. They are. But we have to stay focused on what's in our best interest, the interest of we the people. Our best interest is to maintain control because I've said to you again and again, we're in a civil war. Why is the left willing to fight? And they're going to fight even more. And people are going to die between now and November. Because if we take away the gerrymandering, if we take away the illegals from the voting, if we have a SAVE Act and they have to show an ID, they can't win. I told you, this is the year we win the war. What does that mean? That means that Marxist Democrats become the Whigs. They mean nothing. They're insignificant. They can't win anything. And some of you have seen the stuff that's been on social media this week about the demographics, about out-migration from blue states into red states, and by 2030, the Democrats aren't going to be able to win anything anyway. This is the year we end it. We win the war by doing what? Stopping them from cheating. Because if they stay in power, if they gain power, they're going to change the rules. They're going to, put more states, District of Columbia and Puerto Rico as states and give them Senate seats and stuff like that. Okay? This is it. This is it. This is the year we win the war. You and I win the war by turning out and voting in November. Okay? And we vote for every Republican. Every Republican. This is not the time to have ideological battles. This is the time to have real battles that we win. That's why calling your senator and House member about the SAVE Act every day is critical. More critical than anything else you can do. Okay? All right. Now, we usually talk a lot in the second half of the show about world affairs, and we're going to talk about those now because there's lots going on, okay? This one surprised me. I don't know if it surprised you, but all of a sudden on my TV, Nan's watching, and we're arresting this person who was the leader of the attacks in Benghazi. U.S. arrests key suspect in 2012 Benghazi attack, DOJ announces. And I'm like, what? What is that? U.S. government has apprehended a key suspect in the September 11, 2012 attack on U.S. diplomatic outpost in Benghazi, Libya, Attorney General Pam Bondi announced on February 6th. Speaking to reporters, Bondi identified the arrested suspect as Zubyar al-Balkoush, some poor guy they dragged out. He was, old and all that stuff. Bondi said the FBI apprehended Balkoush, but did not specify where he was found. The individual was apprehended and transferred over the night and into the custody early this morning to Judge Janine Pirro, who's going to prosecute him. 4 Americans were killed in the 2012 Benghazi attack, including U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens, State Department employee Sean Smith, and CIA contractors Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty. So they're saying, if you kill Americans, we will hunt you down no matter how long it takes. 13 years they hunted this person down. But here's the problem. This isn't the justice we're looking for. The justice we're looking for is hunting down Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, this story, if you guys go back in the Wayback Machine, if you're younger, you won't remember this. 13 years ago is a while back, right? This was right before Obama's re-election. And they said what? Oh, these riots were over a YouTube video. And was it, who was it? I forget the woman's name, the woman who was a security, one of Obama's people who went on TV and said, it was a YouTube video. There was nothing to see here. They attacked our ambassador in Libya, dragged him through the streets and murdered him. Hillary Clinton did not send the rescue teams. He was alive. The other people were alive for hours. They were defending themselves. They never sent our troops to rescue him. You know why? Because Hillary Clinton was involved with an illegal arms deal through Libya to Syria that they didn't want you to know about. Barack Obama should have lost his reelection, except we had such a crappy person running against him in Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, okay, that he won reelection. No, and I should even say it. He did not win reelection. They stole that election. We know that's true. We just didn't know then what we knew after the 2020 election, okay, of how they steal elections. There's no way Barack Obama won re-election in 2012. I'll talk about that some other day. But in Portage County, where we ran the efforts, he supposedly won Portage County, and we were counting the votes, and we know it wasn't even close. So why wasn't Hillary Clinton arrested, Pam Bondi? How come no one's ever even investigated what happened in Benghazi? But now this poor SOB, who's, bring him to justice. They killed our people. Yeah, he deserves the death penalty. But that was just gaslighted. It was wrong. Hillary Clinton should have been the one that they arrested, not this guy. That would be real justice. Okay, so now I told you last week that we've got this huge armada outside of Iran. And I still think that Trump made a mistake not bombing Iran when the students were rioting and they killed, we're hearing now, 36,000, that there are 300,000 who've been arrested and the Iranians are stalling, okay? So the State Department says Americans are warned to leave Iran now as chance of war rises. The U.S. State Department has put out an urgent advisory urging American citizens to leave Iran now, coinciding with indirect discussions in Oman between U.S. and Iranian officials concerning Iran's nuclear program. Alerts were posted late Thursday by various U.S. embassies for Iran, recommended that people there prepare an exit plan that does not rely on U.S. government help, and if the departure isn't possible right away, keep a low profile. The latest warning comes after the Islamic Republic carried out a harsh crackdown on large-scale protests last month, leading to thousands of death among demonstrators during a period of deteriorating economic conditions. President Trump had previously warned he will intervene to prevent the regime from killing demonstrators en masse. Since then, Iran has captured 2 oil tankers in the Straits of Oman, and they sent a drone towards a U.S. aircraft carrier. And we're having these indirect talks where we met in Turkey, I guess it was, and we were talking to Persian negotiators. Each party was talking separately. Finally, we apparently had a talk together, and the Iranians are saying, we're not getting rid of our nuclear weapons. We're not getting rid of them. And that's the condition that Trump wants. So we're at a stalemate. You know what that means? A stalemate means Iran's winning, because they've been stalemating us since the Iranian hostage deal. Okay? So very, very concerning to me what's going on with Iran, because I don't think we're going to get what we want, and I think we missed an opportunity. You can write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org and let me know if you agree or disagree, but I don't like what's going on with Iran at all. So then China. China is the big problem, and they just had a big problem. We talked about it last week, and I think I was proven right. I think this next article is going to show, when I said to you, when Xi completely wiped out the head of his military, I said, I think this was because they got embarrassed in Venezuela in a way they couldn't have even imagined. And I think it's true, and I think this article backs that up. CCP first official response to purges reveals lack of confidence and military capabilities. Xi's purge was created a vacuum in the PLA's top leadership and significantly weakened its capabilities and his own control of the military, analysts said. So there's big problems for Xi now that A, he doesn't believe his military is as good as they told him they were, and B, he's afraid of his military. The Chinese Communist regime on January 20th provided its first official response on January 28th, provided its first official response to the ousting of 2 top generals after days of unusual silence. Zhang Han, spokeswoman for the CCP's Taiwan Affairs Office, said the case once again demonstrates that the Chinese Communist Party and the Central Military Commission are committed to combating corruption without restrictions, comprehensively, and with zero tolerance, adding that it is an important manifestation of the CCP and its military determination and strength to cut out corruption and fraud. Well, it's all corruption and fraud. Anybody who understands communism and Marxism is that the fraud is based on, we're going to, make you all equally poor in the communist world, okay? But we at the top, we're going to all be billionaires and have all of our money stored offshore in other countries, right? And that's what China's all about. I mean, it's just that simple. That's what China's all about. So they basically got embarrassed in Venezuela by the U.S. military, and then he purged all these top military leaders, and now there's other military leaders who are afraid of being purged, and so now Xi's afraid of what's going to happen to him, okay? But the bottom line is we care about what happens to us, and our problem is that we have let the Chinese infiltrate our country in every way you can imagine, from flying spy balloons all the way across our country, and Joe Biden, who happened to get millions of dollars through his son Hunter Biden from the Chinese, doesn't shoot them down, to Chinese students in our universities that Donald Trump keeps allowing. That's wrong, okay? And then this story, no, you're going to have wall-to-wall coverage of Nancy Grace's mother, or maybe that's her name, Nancy Grace being kidnapped or whatever from her home. Wall-to-wall coverage. Yeah, was there any coverage of this? How much coverage of this did you see? Las Vegas neighborhood rocked by suspected illegal biolab. Illegal biolab in a neighborhood in Las Vegas, okay? Authorities sent more than 1,000 pieces of evidence, unknown substances, to get tested. On January 31st, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police and SWAT teams raided the house on 979 Sugar Springs Drive. Inside the garage, they discovered suspected biological laboratory containing a freezer, several refrigerators, a centrifuge, and other specialized equipment, and over 1,000 vials and gallon-sized containers of unknown red and brown liquids. The Sugar Springs Drive home is owned by David Destiny Discovery LLC, whose principal owner is David He, the same person connected to an illegal biolab shut down in Greeley, California in 2023. Okay? Investigators at the Reedy biolab found materials possibly linked to infectious diseases, including hepatitis, COVID-19, HIV, malaria, and other dangerous pathogens. Police have named He as a suspect in the Las Vegas case and said federal authorities are already holding him because of charges related to the 2023 investigation. He is a Chinese national. This is communist Chinese have biolabs in neighborhoods in the United States for years, and we didn't do anything about it. That should scare the hell out of all of us, right? Because if we're ever going to have a war, as we saw in 2020, right? Oh, that Chinese bioweapon called COVID overthrew our government. If we go to war with China over Taiwan or something, what do you think that lab was going to be used for? How many people in Nevada do you think would be dead from the stuff in that biolab? Oh, yeah, nothing to see here. Nancy Grace's house, they found her security cameras were disconnected. Wow. See, you cannot hate regular media enough. You can't hate them enough for not doing what they should be doing for the American people. Giving you important news, helping you understand what's going on in our world, helping us protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Okay? So I'm going to go through a series of things here, and as you know in this podcast, I try to keep it balanced between good news and bad news, okay? And I don't lie. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to hide bad news, and I'm not going to just promote good news. And I've already given you some stuff that wasn't too good. So we're going to have a little string here of not such good news, and then I got to finish with some really great news. So let's go with that. Virginia begins criminalizing opposition to Islam. So the stories this week you have seen that the quote unquote moderate Democrat commie who was elected, the woman who was elected to be Virginia's governor, has now just dropped the Marxist hammer on you fools in Virginia who didn't turn out to vote, by the way. You didn't turn out to vote. Go look at the polls. Go look at the elections returns. You didn't turn out to vote. And now you've got unbelievable gun laws. You've got DEI. You've got all kinds of discrimination. But you'll love this. Senator Saddam claims that Virginia is in the middle of an Islamophobia crisis. The second Muslim elected to the state Senate after Gaza Hashmi, who is now acting as Virginia's lieutenant governor, right? So an Islamist is the governor, lieutenant governor of the communist governor, okay? So it's Mandami in Virginia, all right? Now he's now acting as lieutenant governor. Bangladeshi, the Bangladeshi immigrant from a country where non-Muslims are being murdered in the streets, have made complaining about Islamophobia in his new home his signature issue. Senator Saddam Azal Salim's first priority has been a bill to define Islamophobia. The most notable thing about his bill, Senate Bill 624, says assault and battery definition of Islamophobia penalty is how completely unnecessary it is. Virginia already has multiple layers of hate crimes enhancements for assault motivated by race, ethnicity, and religion. During Governor Glenn Youngkin's term, the legislature already passed Senate Bill 7 and its counterpart enhancing the assault charges for anyone who intentionally selects the person against whom a simple assault is committed because of his race, religion, religious conviction, gender, disability, gender identity, all that stuff, right? So they've already got these laws. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. Oh no. This Muslim says we've got to really make a point. And that should cover Islam and Muslims. And yet Senator Saddam's introduced a 3-page bill with 10 clauses in its first section, a whole lot of whom do nothing more than add Islam where it isn't remotely needed or useful. For example, it says, quote, because of his race, religious conviction, quote, parentheses, including Islam, gender, disability, gender identity, or because of his race, religious conviction, including Islam, Islam appears to be the only religion being singled out in this way. Why provide Islam with this privileged status? Because it makes Islam distinct, which is a step towards making it superior. So while we're fighting in Texas to outlaw Sharia law and in Congress to outlaw Sharia law, and you guys have seen the Gad Saad video, and I'm going to reference that again in this next article, about how we can't have people who despise our culture coming into our country to overthrow it. In Virginia, they're going to lock you up. It's just shades of Barack Obama. Remember? Oh, the religion of peace. You're all Islamophobic. And we all went through the gaslighting of you can't criticize Islam or Iran or anybody because you're all Islamophobe. No, you are a clear-thinking person who had problems with their illegitimate faith, which isn't a faith, it's a form of government. Sharia law. That's what we are for. We don't hate Islamists. We hate Islamists because they're militant Muslims. We don't hate Muslims. We hate Muslims who hate America, who hate the West. There's a difference, okay? In Virginia, they're going to blur that difference, and they're going to prosecute you because you didn't show up to the polls, because you didn't vote, and you let this happen. And now you're going to be just like New York. You're going to find out how bad it really can be. And then maybe you'll wake up. Then maybe you'll start to say, no, this isn't right. This isn't America. Yeah, it's your America now. Deal with it. This was a story I put out that's really important. And if you didn't get our emails and text messages at wethepeopleconvention.org, go read this story. The idiots in the EU just voted to commit societal suicide and end Western civilization. Now remember, Trump went to Davos, to the World Economic Forum, and he said to Europe, you got to stop the immigration, you got to quit the Green New scam because it's destroying you. And we won't be allies with weak countries. Don't do it. Yeah. Listen to what this clown did. Western civilization took 3,000 years to create, but only 1 day to murder. On January 27, 2026, President and European Commission of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced a new trade deal between India and the EU. And, we're going to talk about Trump did a trade deal with India too. Wasn't this trade deal? This includes an India-EU comprehensive framework of cooperation on mobility. This mobility agreement will ease movement from India to EU members for highly skilled workers, students, researchers, and seasonal workers. Seasonal workers. Oh, you mean people with no skills in the age of AI? We're gonna have them come in? It also contains the first EU legal gateway office in India to add rocket fuel to the population movement from India to the US. While it was not received much attention in America, it should. The EU just murdered Western civilization. It opened the doors of Europe to what is sure to be a movement of tens of millions of Indians. Remember, India has the biggest population in the world. It's bigger than China. And its population is not going down. We're talking hundreds of millions, not tens of millions. We have seen this before. In 2015, in a direct violation of the EU's Dublin regulation, German Chancellor Angela Merkel opened Germany's and Europe's border to mass migration. We can manage this, she said at the time. Consequently, German cities and German identity and European cities and identities have come under assault. Mass migration through violent crime, including murder and rape, and destroys the fabric of these high trust societies. Fundamentally, it advances the dissolution of these countries and the end of Western civilization. It is not just in the EU. In the United Kingdom, the Labour government under Keir Starmer just went from smash the gangs that are facilitating endless illegal channel crossings by overwhelmingly men from Africa and the Middle East and Asia. When Labour was on the campaign trail, they said, we're going to stop it, to doing everything it can to welcome them now that Labour is in the government. Hundreds of thousands of young men have been distributed around the UK, with more to come. Britons may be in prison for a tweet and are jailed at numbers that demonstrate the great freedoms of the British people, hard won through civil war, wars and struggles, have been totally lost. Okay? You got to read this article, and I did put the Gad Sad video link in here, where it's a 2 minute and 39-second video that says, if you want to survive with Western civilization, you got to do these like 9 things. Real simple. First one, don't let people into your country who don't believe as you do, who don't have the same religion, don't have the same, cultural history. The EU's going to do it. And you know what? They're done. They're going to be nothing. And want proof of that? Oh, yeah, you want some proof of that? Yeah, we always bring receipts. I keep telling you, we always bring receipts. France spirals down EU wealth list towards third world status. The country used to be among America's richest economies, but is being overtaken, and critics warn there is no recovery on the horizon. Okay? Go woke, go broke. While small countries such as Luxembourg and Ireland have a gross domestic GDP per capita that is more than double the European average, if that interest is set at 100, then Germany, the bloc's biggest economy, is ranked at 116, UK is 99, and France is 98, according to Eurostat figures from 2024. As for the Italians, they were 10% poorer than the French in 2020. They are now at almost exactly the same level, a separate study found. The GDP per capita at purchasing power parity, a measure of income per person accounting for currency differences, basically has them both at $59,000 a year as income. The figures all are more striking because the EU as a whole is falling ever further behind the US in terms of economic clout. They have provoked an outpouring of despair from commentators, particularly those on the right. And basically, there's a video that I posted on X.com, TomZWTPCX.com. And it's this French politician, who went to Poland. And he says, I go to Poland, and it's the same Poland I visited years ago. There's freedom there. Their economy is booming. Young women can wear whatever clothes they want. They can go out at night. I could walk the streets of Warsaw. I come to France, women have to change their clothing or they're afraid to be attacked by Muslim men. that you can't, he said, I as a male can't walk through Paris at night in certain neighborhoods. Why don't they get it? When are they going to overthrow these tyrants that have taken bribes from China? Right? The whole climate thing was all bribery. The WHO, the World Economic Forum, all those elites took bribes from China to destroy their own countries. They're seditious bastards. They should be hung by the neck until dead as traitors to your country. And that's what it's going to come to, because people will not continue to be subjected to this idiocy. And no one's dumber than the woman that's leading the EU. So there's your receipt, right? There's your receipt. So in the United States, we did a deal with India as well. Trump makes major trade deal with India, but it wasn't to bring 100 million Indians to the United States, right? That's what it wasn't about. It was about a trade deal that Trump has been working on for a long time. President Donald Trump said on Monday that the United States has struck a new trade agreement with India following a phone call with Indian Prime Minister Modi. In the posting on Truth Social, Trump said the pact calls for Washington to reduce its reciprocal tariffs on Indian goods from 25% to 18%, and that India will likewise move forward to reduce their tariffs and non-tariff barriers against the United States to zero. India, I just said, has the biggest population on the planet. President Trump just negotiated a deal where U.S. companies can sell into India with zero tariffs. And he lowered the tariffs from India into our country from 25 to 18%. Trump added that the Modi agreed to significantly increase purchases of U.S. products, including more than $500 billion of U.S. energy, technology, agriculture, coal, and many other progress. He described the relationship between the two leaders as strong, saying they got together to get things done. Trump also said Modi agreed to stop buying Russian oil. We spoke about many things, including trade and ending the war with Russia and Ukraine. He agreed to stop buying Russian oil and buy much more from the United States and potentially Venezuela. Venezuela, right? Okay? This will help end the war in Ukraine, which is taking place right now with thousands of people dying each and every day and week, as we noted last week, about 2 million casualties may be reaching that plateau this year. So that's how we do it. Why isn't EU doing the same thing? Because they don't care. Because they think they're going to be safe. The elites, the rulers over the people, they think they're above the people. They don't care, because they've got millions of dollars in Swiss bank accounts. They're going to be just fine. To hell with you farmers in Germany and France. To hell with you, people in all these European countries who are just struggling. Again, when the EU started, the GDP of United States and EU were almost equal. Now the EU is like 40% behind. 40%. Wow. That's a tragedy. And it's a man-made tragedy. It's disgusting. Okay. So that was a good news, okay? So then this news is interesting. We talked about Hillary Clinton, about the Benghazi story. So now we're talking about Hillary Clinton's going to testify and Bill Clinton about the Epstein files. Really? This is like still big news. Clinton strategically agreed to testify to House on Epstein investigation. So they released a whole bunch more of the Epstein files, and there's all people showing up. It's a muddled mess. I don't even know what the heck we're supposed to make out of it. And oh yeah, no one's going to get prosecuted. So it's all about shaming people, I guess. But they're not doing a very good job of it. So they're going to bring in the Clintons in, right? The Clintons are political animals. Everything they do is with a political strategy at the forefront of their thinking. What Bill and Hillary need was to provide an excuse for Democrats on the House Oversight Committee to vote against holding them in contempt. They found out that the Democrats were going to vote for them to be held in contempt, like Steve Bannon and Navarro was. They didn't want to go there. So in a somewhat opaque last-minute agreement to testify about their involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, rules and limits still to be decided, Bill and Hillary Clinton have simply attempted to stall the House from holding him in contempt. They basically said, we'll come and testify. But she wants to testify on live TV. You know why? Because if you testify at a hearing, it's one of those circuses where they alternate Republican, Democrat, and they each get 5 minutes to question you, and you can stall and do all kinds of crazy stuff. If you bring behind closed doors, it's not, it's a testimony under oath, and you can be interrogated over facts. She doesn't want to do that, okay? But again, Hillary Clinton, they're playing the game. No two people are more deserving of going to prison than those two. But so far, doesn't look like that's going to happen, does it? Doesn't look like it. So that's not very good news. This is not good in my mind, but I want to hear what you guys think. New York's right to die bill affirms bodily autonomy. New York state lawmakers have passed the Medical Aid in Dying Act and sent it to Governor Hochul's desk, and she's going to sign it into law. New York will join 11 states in the District of Columbia in enacting Death with Dignity law. Oregon was the first state to enact Death with Dignity Act in 1994. Originally passed as a ballot measure. Voters decided by a margin of 60% to 40% to retain the law with a second ballot referendum in 1997. New York's made a law closely follows the model in use in other states that allow physician-assisted death, requiring patients to be terminally ill adults with 6 months or less to live, mentally capable, and able to make both written and oral requests. Like most states, it permits healthcare providers to opt out and mandates that death certificates list only the underlying illness. However, New York proposed stands out for potentially allowing a much shorter waiting period, possibly 24 hours compared to the typical 15-day interval in other states. All U.S. jurisdictions that allow medical aid in dying currently require that the patient self-administer the lethal medication, not a physician or anyone else. So I told you that in Canada, government allowing suicide, government-assisted suicide, is becoming like one of the biggest causes of deaths, particularly for young people. And now it's growing in this country. And there's a libertarian view that you own your body, you should have a right to kill yourself, okay? I, because of religious reasons, don't believe that's right. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org and go to our podcast page and read that whole article. It's written from the perspective of someone who believes it should be legal, okay? So it'll challenge your thoughts, but it's worth looking at. But I put that under the not so good category. Here's another not so good category. Tesla reported zero federal income tax on $5.7 billion of U.S. income in 2025. And it gets worse. Tesla, the company owned by a billionaire who briefly held a job seeking to cut federal government waste, received over $1.1 billion in federal income tax breaks from American taxpayers last year alone. Tesla's annual financial report released this morning shows the company enjoyed over almost $5.7 billion of U.S. income in 2025, almost doubling the $2.98 billion the company enjoyed in 2024, of which it reports precisely zero current federal income tax. Over the past 3 years, Elon Musk-led company reported $12.58 billion of U.S. income, of which its current federal tax was just $48 million. That means that over the past 3 years, Tesla paid just 0.4%, not 4%, 0.4% of its U.S. profits in federal income taxes, which is another way of saying the company reported an effective federal income tax rate of 0.4%. This is a tiny fraction of the 21% tax rate profitable corporations are supposed to pay under the law. Full disclosure, we own Tesla stock. I talked to you about that when they were burning Tesla's charging stations and his stock crashed. That would be a good opportunity to buy, and it sure has been. But this is wrong. This is what's wrong. And they're not alone. They're singling out Tesla because, he's number one on the hit parade. There's a bunch of giant companies who pay nothing. And yet we're trying to cut fraud and abuse, and we're not collecting any income tax from companies. It's just wrong. Again, argue with me. I understand that not overtaxing companies is important because they need the capital to grow and hire more people, invest in equipment, but we're already giving them in the big beautiful bill the ability to write off their investments in infrastructure in the first year, and they're doing it. It's an amazing thing to turbocharge industry. But you got to tax them something. They shouldn't get zero. That's my take. You tell me. Info at WeThePeopleConvention.org what your take is. This is again, go woke, go broke. These people are nuts. Infamous school board trains staff to fight terrorist parents angry about trans bathroom policies. This is a current article, February 5th of this year, right? This is Laudon County School Board in January hosted the training to teach staff and board members how to fight off terrorist parents, according to Eyewitness. The closed-door meeting, I bet it was closed-door, was meant to respond to terrorist activity at school board meetings and included dozens of hired actors playing the role of Laudon County parents, according to Channel 7 News. Sources who were present at the meeting told the outlet the actors simulated parents bringing guns into the meeting, and staff were instructed in the same measures students are taught to use in the event of an active shooter situation. Run, hide, and fight. Behind the chair, April Chandler referred to actors as disruptors and agitators and mentioned past meetings where parents voiced concerns over some of the district's actions. You mean the rape of an underage girl by a trans boy in the bathroom? You mean some of the district's actions where they didn't report him to the police and then he went to another school and did it again? You mean that actions by the school board? Loudoun County became infamous in 2021 after they being exposed for allegedly, no, it wasn't alleged, it was proven, attempting to cover up a sexual assault in a school bathroom perpetrated by a male student. The victim's father was later arrested at a board meeting after he demanded the board admit they covered up his daughter's attack. There were no violent parents at those meetings, the father, Scott Smith, told 7 News. We're loud, we're very loud, and we're very forceful because they won't listen to us. I know nobody that has wished any violence upon the school board. Not me. Once ever have I thought about doing anything violent against the school board. We want to be heard, and we want to be respected, and we want our children to be protected. Oh, you're a terrorist if you want your children to be protected. And you're a virtuous woke fool if you're on that school board or you're a teacher and you think what you're doing is good for students. Yeah. Go look at the AMA thing earlier in this podcast. Go look at the plastic surgeons thing earlier in this podcast. Go look at the trial where the doctors lost $2 million. Yeah, go look at that. All right, let's turn the corner, start getting some good news. Briefly mention this. Ryan Roth sentenced to life in prison for Trump assassination attempt. This is the guy that tried to shoot at Trump at the golf course after the Butler incident, and the Secret Service stopped him, thank God. Okay, he's a nut job. He got life imprisonment. No surprise there. That was a good thing. This is an update on something I called into question. Some of you wrote to me about. You had some things to say about it. Trump says he will donate proceeds for IRS lawsuit to charity. Any money that I win, I will give to charity, the president said. Well, I still have a problem. This is a thing. President Donald Trump said he would donate to charity any proceeds from his $10 billion lawsuit he recently filed against the IRS over what his lawyers said was an unauthorized disclosure of his tax returns. Okay? So that was against the IRS and the Treasury Department. All the money that I win, I will give to charity, 100% charity. Charities that will be approved by the government or whatever, Trump told NBC News. Reporter said in an interview, you can't leak documents, that's why I'm doing this. In late January, the president filed lawsuits against the IRS and the Treasury Department, saying the agency failed to prevent it. At that time, I said, President Trump, what are you doing? You're suing us. You shouldn't be suing us, okay? Sue Booz Allen, whose employee leaked the documents to the media. Sue them for $10 billion. We're all for that. And then give that money to charity. though you and your sons and your family were damaged by that. Clearly, you're going to win this lawsuit, but not against us, we the people. We can't be given $10 billion for that when we're trying to cut the budget deficit. Again, tell me what you think, but that's what I think. That really, it's not good enough. It's an update. At least he says he's going to give it to charity, but he shouldn't be suing us. Okay? This is really good news. Trump administration adds the forbidden citizenship question to the 2030 census. So we've been talking about this, and I had a little tip for you guys. I think it was Iowa, whose attorney general is suing the Census Bureau about illegals and having them counted in the census, and then appropriations of House seats according to that. And I said, I think this is a plan where they're filing the suit. It'll get ruled at in a court. It'll be overturned. It'll go to the Supreme Court because Trump wants to lock this in. So now this story comes out. Trump administration is moving ahead with plans to ask the forbidden citizenship question on the 2030 census. The question seems mundane enough. At one point in the census question, now being field tested in Alabama and South Carolina, just says, is this person a citizen of the United States? You can say, yes, I was born in the United States. Yes, I was born in Puerto Rico, Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, or Northern Marianas, which makes you a U.S. citizen. Yes, I was born to U.S. parents abroad, makes you a U.S. citizen. Yes, U.S. citizen by naturalization. You have to give the year of your naturalization on the census form. No, I'm not a citizen. Okay? Well, here's the bottom line. This has always been in the census. It was bogus in 2020 when they gaslit Trump. Trump administration attempted to place a citizenship question on the 2020 census, and it should have been. The case eventually reached the Supreme Court with a 4-justice liberal minority joined by John Roberts, remember? Ruling that the reasoning was pretextual and designed to discriminate against Hispanics. Asking the citizenship question was discriminatory against Hispanics. How? No one knows. In the end, the administration was forced to not ask the question. The argument was the citizenship question is about the question, it's just ridiculous. The question was asked consistently from 1890 to 2000. The question the Supreme Court didn't address in 2019 was, why is a question that has been asked for about half the life of the census suddenly improper? It didn't matter. It was Trump derangement syndrome. And John Roberts, you creep, you political animal, you screwed the people. You screwed America because you were afraid that the people at your cocktail parties that you attend wouldn't like you anymore, right? Wow, what a failure. Everyone knows the real person not asking the question is to bloat the number of legal residents and citizens in Democratic strongholds to protect the voting power of those areas, the illegal voting power. The clear intention of the searches of the census, as described in Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, is the apportionment of House representatives. And Stephen Miller has been on X all week saying there's 20 to 30 House members who have no right being in Congress right now, except for John Roberts and these people who did that. So that's a good news thing. That's a very good news thing. Here's another very good news thing if you're in the stock market. Friday, it was a surprise. The Dow hits 50,000 for the first time ever. The stock market is rallying following 3 days of selling amid tech stocks and metals like gold and silver and crypto turmoil. So when Trump named his Federal Reserve chairman choice, and we talked a lot about that, this Warsh guy, financial people loved it, but the stock market went nuts. And gold and silver really took a hit because people thought this would help the dollar, and it did. The dollar is stronger. But then the stock market had these sell-offs and stuff, but wow, it just roared back. U.S. stocks surged on February 6th in a stunning turnaround that saw the blue chip Dow soar more than 1,200 points in one day to pierce and close above 50,000 mark for the first time ever. The Dow reaching 50,000 is less than about celebration and more about confirmation, said Gina Bolvin, president of Bolvin Wealth Management. Markets have adjusted to higher rates, slower growth, and global uncertainty, and is still moving higher. That tells us confidence is real, and 2026 will be less about the Federal Reserve and more about business fundamentals. Folks, hold on. It's going to be a hell of a great year. After steep losses early in the week, investors decided that the sell-off was overdone and returned to the market. A jump in the University of Michigan's consumer sentiment survey to the highest level since August. So we the people, said in the survey, we are optimistic about 2026 in that survey, and a drop in short-term inflation expectations to 3.5%, the lowest level in just over a year, helped turbocharge the whole thing. And this is despite a big rollback in AI stocks. Microsoft lost like 9%. Meta lost a bunch. Like I told you, gold went from $5,400 an ounce to like $4,700. Now it's back up to $5,000, but it's still down. Silver is way down. It's down to $70. Crypto is in half. Crypto is down from 164,000 last year when Trump got behind crypto, and it's down to 60,000 or 70,000. Now, it rebounded a little yesterday. So what's it really mean to you? Even if you're not in the stock market, things are going to happen really good this year financially. So what are those things? Any of your kids, anybody, if you're still working, you need to look at your payroll withholding, because the new Trump, big beautiful bill tax changes, you should be able to get more in your paycheck, each paycheck, by adjusting your withholding a little bit. You're going to get a bigger tax return because you didn't adjust your withholding last year and you didn't know what it would mean. And that's going to really help. Okay? I talked to you about these companies who are building like crazy because they can write off any money they spend on building infrastructure on their taxes this year. So it's like we're giving them a tax incentive to grow their business, and they are. So lots of good things. Just be ready for it and lean into it. Make it happen, right? Put that money into the economy. Buy things that will help create jobs in the United States, okay? Lean into it. That's what we do to help our system, ourselves and our country, okay? Now, this is another really big court win. And again, it doesn't get enough coverage, but this one I wanted to feature at the end because it's really important. Big court victory for Trump. Appeals courts vacates injunction preventing DEI programming purges. So what does this mean? We all know Trump said a year ago, DEI is dead. We're going to cut it. It's discriminatory. It's anti-white racism. That's what DEI was, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion. My butt. That wasn't what it was about. It's about racial quotas against white people. It was totally racist, and it needs to go. And Trump has crushed it in the federal government. He's crushing it in big companies. All the big companies are removing it, and then this court decision solidifies it. In welcome good news for the Trump administration out of the federal court system, a U.S. federal appeals court today vacated an earlier injunction that had blocked parts of President Trump's executive orders targeting diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. In Richmond, Virginia-based 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, a 3-judge panel vacated the injunction that would have stopped the Trump administration from eliminating DEI programs in the federal government and among federal contractors. And so that was a huge thing because, again, the federal contractors were being forced. Okay, so if you wanted to just, the federal government has money to build an airport or a road or a military base or water treatment plant, and you're a contractor and you want to bid on that, through the Obama years and the Biden years, they were forcing you to hire non-whites, to discriminate against whites. Now you don't have to. It's over. And they're getting rid of all the stuff. I talked to you about the SBA program that was $26 billion that was being given to people. Anyone except for whites could apply. And they got rid of that after Rufo brought it to their attention, right? They're getting rid of the things about minority-owned businesses. That's discrimination. That's what the left did to us to destroy our economy and our country. We're undoing it, ripping it apart. You got to see it. You got to talk about it. You got to applaud it. It's awesome. And then speaking about applauding things, Nan and I went with some patriots that we've known for a long time to see the Melania movie last week. Exclusive, Melania director Brett Ratner gives First Lady all the credit for documentary's opening weekend success. I'm posting this article for you because it was really interesting. This was the guy who produced it. And he talks about how different this was, because this was a documentary, and Melania's vision was, no, we're going to make this like a TV theater, not a Netflix, YouTube thing. We're going to make it like a theater presentation. And they did. And this, you're going to find this article really interesting if you saw the movie or you didn't. Melania documentary director Brett Ratner told Breitbart News in an exclusive interview hours after the film hit new theaters worldwide that First Lady Melania Trump deserves all the credit for the picture's historic opening weekend success. Melania hauled in more than $8 million in its opening weekend, which would be the best for a box office documentary in the last decade. Humber Ratner told Breitbart News via phone interview Saturday that he gives all the credit to the First Lady, the film's subject, for its extremely successful box office performance. I had to give all the credit to Melania because this was something that she came up with even before she met me. The fact that she had hired a feature film director like myself to do a documentary was very surprising, and for me as well. But she said to me in day one, I want this to be a very cinematic. I want to have theatrical release. I want to live and play in theaters. It's very rare that documentaries get released in theaters. It's usually straight to streaming. And even before they were streaming, documentaries were not in movie theaters. They were on DVDs and stuff. We would get those, right? So she is really, it is really her vision to have it, see this and have it seen through to the end. Now, I don't know if you went. We went because we knew the left wanted to demonize her, and she has been demonized so unfairly from day one. This woman is a magnificent success story. She's a wonderful first lady, one of the best ever. And so we went to make sure it didn't fail. And I think many of you did the same thing. But it was a pretty wild movie. It was a little frightening to me because of the opulence. I knew there was gold at Trump Tower. I didn't know there was that much gold. And the perfectionist that Melania Trump is off the charts. And so this view behind the scenes for the 20 days leading up to the second inauguration was really insightful and a little unsettling. And it really made clear to me that not everyone can be president of the United States. No, for sure. Can't be. I'd love to hear what you think if you saw it. But guess what? It's now being released in 200 theaters, many more than last week. It did like 1 million a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's going to be a big hit. So you might want to see it. It's certainly something that you can't expect. It's unlike anything I could ever even imagine. So I'm glad we went, and I'm glad it's a success. And yes, we applaud it. We applaud. She's a magnificent first lady and a really unusual person. So 2 more things and we'll wrap it up. U.S. life expectancy hits an all-time high in 2024, CDC says. This is really good news because things were going south. And they were going south because of COVID, but they were also going south because of drug overdoses. U.S. life expectancy rose to 79 years in 2024, the highest mark in American history, and the result of not only the dissipation of the COVID pandemic, but also waning death rates from all of the nation's top killers, including heart disease, cancer, and drug overdoses. What's more, preliminary statistics suggest continued improvement in 2025. Hopefully we hit 80. It's pretty much good news all the way around, said that Robert Anderson of the National Center for Health Statistics. Life expectancy, a fundamental measure of a population's health, is an estimate of the average number of years a baby born in a given year might expect to live, given death rates at that time. For decades, U.S. life expectancy rose at least a little bit over most years, thanks to medical advances and public health measures. It peaked in 2014, just shy of 79 years, but then went down to 76.5 years in 2021. It has rebounded since then because cancer deaths are down 3%, heart disease is down, but death from drug overdoses, down 14%. Congratulations, folks. We're getting healthy again. That's what we voted for. You're taking care of your health. You're listening to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You're changing your diets. You're not eating processed foods. You're taking the pills that help you lose weight to get your weight under control. That's what you do to make America great. right? That's how you protect and defend individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And so I want to wrap up today's show with this video that CNN did. It's about MAGA. It's about you and me. It's about the future. And it's about, does MAGA live or die with Donald Trump? I think you'll find this very uplifting and positive. Watch this.
So how much power, and we're talking about influence here, do they have on the GOP, especially over the long run?
Yeah, over the long run. That's what I think is so important here. And it's not just about Donald Trump. It's about the Make America movement. Again, that's what we're talking about, Make America Great Again movement. And it is as powerful as it has ever been. Because I want you to take a look here. GOP who view MAGA favorably. 2 years ago when Donald Trump was running for term number 2, it was 74%. Today, look at this. It's 78% of Republicans who view the Make America Great Again movement favorably. So we're talking about something that, in my opinion, will very much be able to outlast Donald Trump. Trump is in term number 2. He can't run for a term number 3. But the bottom line is this. What he brought into the GOP looks like it's going to last long beyond him.
It's a very populist movement. I am curious because J.D. Vance would then be the next standard bearer of this movement. Where is the GOP on how they feel about him?
Yeah, okay. So, obviously J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, at this point looks like a favorite for the Republican nomination come 2028. And one of the reasons why he looks like a favorite is because the Republican base loves J.D. Vance. What are we talking about here? Someone who really represents the Make America Great Again movement. This is somebody, a year ago, his favorable rating among Republicans, 81%. Latest Marquette University Law School poll, look at this, 84%. 84%. So if anything, his favorable rating is somewhat up from where it was a year ago, after a year of Trump. And, of course, that matches what we see when it comes to MAGA, right? It matches what we see coming to MAGA, whereby it was 74, and now it's 78%. If anything, MAGA's grip on the GOP, and it seems like the next in line to be the next standard bearer of MAGA, both of them, their favorable ratings are actually up after a year of Donald Trump's second term.
I hope that made you feel pretty good. I think it's accurate. I think that MAGA is more popular. I think that Americans want to make America great again, right? Why wouldn't you? Do you want to make America bad again? Well, a bunch of Democrats do, and they do, because they're communists, they're not Americans. But we don't. And independents who haven't figured out the difference, they understand these policies are going to help change a lot of minds, okay? So for everybody who says, oh, after Trump, it's all over, I think the proof is there, okay? I hope that makes you happy. So we're going to wrap up the podcast. As always, tell people about this podcast. The more people that we have watch it, the better off we're going to be. If you have questions, if I said something wrong, if I'm inaccurate, write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org. info@wethepeopleconvention.org. If there's stories I should have covered that I didn't cover, if there's things that, there's videos that you think, could help people, send it to me. info@wethepeopleconvention.org. But tell people about this podcast, all right? And then, most of all, act. Act on what we ask. Spend this week calling your senator and House member every day. Every day. Call their local offices. Call their Washington office. Call the Democrats. We got to pass the SAVE Act. That's our job for this week. All right? I'm confident that you will do that. I'm confident we will win this fight. We're going to get this done. We're going to get this done. All right? And we'll always remember our friend, Charlie Kirk. We'll remember what he taught us about being an American, about being a patriot, about what it takes to fight. We will remember what he told us about faith and what's required of us, what God requires of all of us. And so fight for the good, fight against the evil, make a difference. You make a difference. This organization, WeThePeopleConvention.org, yeah, you don't think we make a difference? Go to WeThePeopleConvention.org and click on the info button, info about We the People Convention, and see if we made a difference. We've made a hell of a difference. We saved our country, and we're still fighting to save it. We got work to do in 2026, but I'm confident we're going to get it done. All right, we're going to wrap up the podcast. I can't thank you enough for joining us this week. I just can't thank you for your time, enough for your time and all the communications we have online, through X or other social media, all that stuff. Thank you to all of you for your support. And thank you for your willingness to fight for the greatest country ever created by God, the United States of America. We're going to sign off for this week. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. God willing, we'll both be together again next week. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Have a great week. Stay warm. Enjoy the Super Bowl.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes